During the 2023 NBA offseason, the Milwaukee Bucks really shook up the NBA world when they decided to move on from point guard Jrue Holiday and make a trade to bring in superstar point guard Damian Lillard. And moments later, that trade led to Jrue Holiday being traded from the Portland Trail Blazers to the Boston Celtics, making the Eastern Conference all the more interesting because we know there's a great chance that the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics, they're going to be on a crash course to the third round of the Eastern Conference playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals to meet and battle it out once again. And when you pit two stars like this on the same team, Damian Lillard, who's a multiple-time All-Star, who has been notarized as one of the best shooters in NBA history, who is also still in the prime of his career, for the first time in his career, he's paired with an actual superstar. And the superstar that he's paired with is not just no ordinary superstar, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's already, his list of accolades runs so long. Giannis could retire right now and he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a multiple time MVP winner. He's won the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's won the Most Improved Player. He's been on the All NBA, All Defensive Team multiple times. And then to cap it all off, he's won an NBA championship and a Finals MVP. So when you pit two guys of this magnitude on the same team, it causes everything these guys do to be put under a microscope, especially when they lose. When we see teams under that microscope, like the Milwaukee Bucks, like Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, the big media is literally analyzing every single thing you do, or they have every single thing you do under that microscope. But mainly when you lose a basketball game, they can't wait for you to lose so they can talk about it and they can tell you what's wrong with this team or why it's not going to work or how they was right about how it wasn't going to work and things of that nature. And so while that's going on, it makes us overlook some pretty important things going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. For starters, sometimes when we turned on the TV and we saw the way that the Milwaukee Bucks were getting talked about, some of the struggles that they were having, you would thought that they were at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. You would thought that they was in the play-in tournament trying to get into a playoff spot. But the reality of it all, this entire season, the Milwaukee Bucks have been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. This entire season, for a majority of it, they've been hold on to a top 3 spot in the conference. So I think that's very important. And to put into context of what I'm talking about, when Adrian Griffin was fired by the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't know if it was something internal, I don't know if it was because they thought they should have won more games than they had won at the time, but when he was fired, he won 70% of his games and he had a record of 30-13. So that just puts into perspective of how sometimes it got a little, the struggles of this team got a little overhyped, as they've been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference all season long. And also when you have this duo of Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, these two guys are so great that it is easy to forget about the rest of the team. Even me, I could say that I'm naive sometimes and I didn't even realize this, and I had to sit back and think about it, that Chris Middleton, one of the best perimeter scorers in the NBA, he has been unavailable for a huge chunk of time for the Milwaukee Bucks this season. Before playing in that game against the Phoenix Suns, he had missed 16 straight games due to a pretty serious ankle sprain, and before that, Chris Middleton was also a little banged up on this season. And it's not like Chris Middleton is not some guy that's not gonna be able to come out and impact the game for these guys, but he's exactly the type of player that's perfect for Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo because he can do so many things on the basketball court. For starters, he is an exceptional three-point shooter. Off the catch, off the dribble, it does not matter. So whenever Dame and Giannis are out there, these two guys put so much pressure on the rim. Having another spot-up shooter like Chris Middleton out there is going to make life a lot easier. And when it comes to a player like Chris Middleton, he's so great at shooting and scoring the basketball. Everything else that he's able to do goes a little bit unnoticed. For example, he is an outstanding playmaker. He could easily average 5-6 assists per game. With Giannis being out last night, he helped pick up that scoring load and he dished out 7 assists. And I believe he just played 25 minutes last in that game against the Phoenix Suns. So Chris Chris Middleton is not some average basketball player. He's an NBA champion. He's an NBA All-Star. And also, he can play defense, he can guard wings, and he can also rebound. So they're missing a player who can do a little bit of everything at a pretty high level. So getting Chris Middleton back, as good as the Milwaukee Bucks have been this year, getting him back and getting him acclimated, we can expect them to get even better on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. So I think that's another thing that, I should speak for myself, something that I've overlooked this season because of the greatness of Giannis and the greatness of Damian Lillard. And you see them lose some games. I'm like, well, you should have got it done. You got Dame and Giannis out there, but then you sit back and be like, damn, they're missing a guy like Chris Middleton. So that's one thing that was on my mind. And then another thing, when you pit two guys like this, it's going to take time. And now you add the factor of bringing in a new head coach in the middle of the season. I heard that's very tough on teams. That's not something I can speak about from experience because I've never been on an NBA team. But that's something that players that have played the game of basketball in the NBA said changing head coaches in the middle of the season could be really tough because you're implementing a new system. But besides that, getting Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard on the court together, these guys have had such different careers. Giannis has never had a ball-dominant guard like Damian Lillard, and then Dame has never had somebody like Giannis Antetokounmpo on his team. And these guys have been in the NBA for 9 and 10 plus years, so it's going to take them some time to learn each other, their tendencies, how they like to pass the ball to each other, and things like that. So I think we have to cut the Milwaukee Bucks some slack in that effort, and I think for them to be number 2 in the Eastern Conference right now with all of these factors going on, I think is very, very impressive. And then to put the cherry on top, outside of those 3 guys that we just talked about, this team has some very high level depth. They get it Pat Bev at the trade deadline to help make up some of that defensive slack that they lost with Drew Holiday. We all know what Pat Bev is. We saw what Giannis said about him. He said when you playing against him, he's an a-hole, and when he's on Giannis's team, that's Giannis's a-hole. And, that's a pause on that. We're gonna pause on that. But you bring in Pat Bev, who can knock down an open 3-point shot and play some tenacious defense. You have Jay Crowder, who can do the same thing. And I've been watching Jay Crowder. He's sneaky good. He can take it off the dribble. He can make some little unorthodox floaters and layups, and he can also pass the ball as well. You got Brook Lopez, who's still spacing the floor for Giannis and also protecting the rim at a high level, still a top 5 leader in blocks per game. They have another guy in Malik Beasley that has the ability to space the floor for both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. Malik Beasley has been so great shooting the basketball this year. He's at the top in the NBA in total 3-pointers made, and he's also on pace. I read about this earlier this season. I don't know if he's done it yet, but I know he was going at a pretty good pace to break the record for most games with at least 5 3-pointers made for the Milwaukee Bucks. So that'd be pretty big time and pretty cool if he's able to break that record. And we just know how elite he's been shooting the basketball for the Milwaukee Bucks and how important it is for his ability to space the floor. And then you also have Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis has been playing out of his mind since the All-Star break. He had a crazy game against the Phoenix Suns, going for 31 points, 25 in the first half. And Bobby Portis just gives you a little bit of everything on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, he's another big that can stretch the floor, so Doc Rivers can play him alongside Giannis whenever he wants to. He can go down and attack a mismatch on the low block, and then probably the craziest quality about him is how great of a rebounder he is. There can be some moments where Bobby Portis really gets locked in, and pause on this, and he's swallowing up every single rebound. So the Milwaukee Bucks, outside of their big 3, they have a really good basketball team. And like I said, I'm a victim of this as well. I think I've been overlooking the Milwaukee Bucks, or overlooking some of the very important factors about this team and how much better they can be once these factors get solved. But that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, comment down below what you think in the comment section, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.